Hey everybody, this is Sean. I'm going to give you a quick demonstration of how snapshots work in libvirt, well, KVM slash QEMU virtualization systems and libvirt and how you deal with those. Now, if you're not familiar with what snapshots are, um, snapshots allow you to look at a system, freeze them in that exact state, so that if you make any changes to it in the future, you can always roll back to that previous state. Now, this is super important, probably one of the most majorly overlooked aspects of virtualization. It's crucial in critical infrastructure. You need to be able to apply patches, and then you need to be able to roll them back if those patches break anything. We're going to do a real simple thing. We're just going to take my resume that's online and make some changes to that server, and then roll it back to a couple of different positions through those changes, and hopefully this will help you better understand how to use this tool. It is an incredibly it just saves you so much time. The alternative is to, every time you're going to do some sort of upgrade to something, is to copy the entire server, which can be incredibly long, anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes. This typically takes about 30 to, well, maybe 2 minutes at the most. The reason for that is that it's taking the original system, and when you snapshot it, everything you do after that is stored in a separate file. And you can create multiple snapshots, but that allows you to roll back at any point to a previous time. And I would highly recommend this if you're dealing with critical applications. Take as many as you need, and then you can just delete the ones that, worked out fine. So what we're going to do first is we're going to look at this. This is a web server that has my resume on it. Again, it's very outdated. We're not even going to get into that, but we're going to go ahead and refresh it. Everything is up and working. That's fine. We're going to go back to here, and we are going to we have a we're going to delete this snapshot that we do have, and then we'll recreate it. Now, when you do this, you do need to understand that when you create a snapshot, it is going to put your server on hold. It literally pauses it. So if we try and view what's going on here, you'll see we have a very fast-moving busy signal. That's because the server is actually offline. It may even come up and tell us it's offline. Nope, we're good. That's how fast it actually applies its pauses it and applies the snapshot. It takes roughly 30 seconds or so. But you do need to understand that the machine is going to be offline during that 30 seconds. Okay, so now you'll notice we have no snapshots in here. The machine's just running. We have nothing to fall back on. But we want to be able to go back and restore it to a previous condition. So we're going to go down here to the plus symbol, and we're going to create a snapshot. Now, I got burned really bad with this one time, and it was because I didn't understand how this thing ordered snapshots. Based on what you name it, it will put them in here in alphabetical order, which is terrible. It makes it very difficult for you to keep track of what happened first. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to name this 0 test. Alright, and we're going to click finish. Now, 0 test, there's a file that we're going to create, but it's 0 test, it doesn't even exist. And that's cool because we can always fall back and go look at this and go, oh yeah, this is before we made this snapshot before we actually created the file. The next file the next snapshot we're going to make after we create test1, which is just going to be a text file that we put in a user directory, actually my user directory. This is important because understanding the layers or the order in which you make these it's super hard to deal with if you don't number them in some sort of way and put them in order so you understand what the first snapshot was and the last snapshot was. Now it gives you snapshot 1 as a, that's just a placeholder that it throws in there, which is nice, but people generally will put things in like before open project installation or something like that. Well, the B is going to put it at the top of the list if you don't have an A entry that you put in. It's weird that it sorts it by alphabetically, but it is what it is, and this is what we have to work with. So now we're going to go and look and make sure it's back up and running, and there it is, it's up and working. And now we're going to create a file. We're going to call it test. We'll do that in the Sean G home directory, which we're already logged into, and we're going to say nano test.txt. Alright, now there's nothing in there for now. So when we started this, we had a brand new fresh system. This file didn't exist, and now we're moving on to test1, which we're going to snapshot. So we're just going to put in test1. Test1. Alright, Control X, yes, enter. Alright, so now this exists, and what we're going to do is we're going to snapshot it and call it test1. So we're going to go in here, click again, and say test1. Test-1. Now, the important thing about naming these, actually, we're going to go one dash test. That's what we're going to call it, because that will help it enumerate it and put it in the proper order. So we're going to call it one dash test. You can't put any spaces in this, so don't even bother with that. If you need a space, you can use an underscore or a dash. But we're just going to call it that, and finish. Now we created that file, and we put in that file the text test1. So that's how we're going to be able to tell where we are at. And again, that's not important for, when you're doing upgrades and things like that. What is important is that you put that 1 in, and 2 when you do the next process, and 3 when you do the next process, because that puts it in order over there so you understand exactly where you're at. And I've done 15 snapshots on a server when I was reconfiguring it. It's a really good way of making sure you have a fallback. You could be working through upgrade paths or anything like that, and as you're doing it, something goes wrong. Well, if you've numbered these every time you go and make a new change, you're good to go. And it doesn't do just the program that you're upgrading, it does the entire hard drive. Hence the reason it takes a little while to fulfill. Okay, so that's done now. So now we've got 2 different snapshots we can work with. If we go back to this one and revert to this, what you're going to find is that file, I can't remember if I created it. I don't think I created it until this step here. So even if we go back to here, we can just do that. We'll go down and fire this up. Are you sure you want to do this? Yes. And again, you guys, the reason I'm doing this video, I can't find anybody that explains this to the detail that it needs to be explained. They just say, well, this is what you do to create them, and yada yada yada, but they don't explain the whole order of stuff. They don't explain what happens when you decide that you've got a completely running system and you don't need any snapshots of it. They don't explain any of that, so this is what we're going to do in this video. Okay, So we've now reverted back to, you'll notice a little green check mark. We're all the way back at the base when we first started. So let's take a look. Guess what? Hadn't even created the file yet, so can't even nano it at all. So now we're going to go back to, basically I created the file in this state right here. I didn't create it back there. This is a completely pristine system, and that file does not exist yet. So now we're going to go back to here, and we're going to play that. Yes, again. And I feel kind of bad because this could have saved me a lot of time if I had just sat down and learned how this worked. But at the time, I was very busy and I didn't have time. So now I had a little bit of time, so I spent a day playing around with this, making sure it was going to work. Okay, so we're now running on the test, the one test snapshot. So now if we go in and we look at this, you'll notice it was right there where I left it. And we can go nano test.text, and there it is, test 1. All right? So we basically rolled it back, or rolled it forward, in a sense, to the spot where we had created the file and put something in it. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add another line in here. We're going to call it test 2. Put a space in there so it's nice and uniform, and control X and yes. You could think of this in terms of, okay, this is the second step of the upgrade that I'm doing on the server. So yes to that. And now we're going to go in and create a new snapshot, and we're going to call it 2test. Alright, 2-test, 1-test. Okay, we're good. It's important to note, and I think I mentioned it earlier, when you do this, when you create a snapshot, your server is going to be down while it's creating the snapshot. It has to pause it so there's no changes being written to it while it's doing this process. So it is a minor inconvenience, but when you schedule this at like 2 o'clock in the morning or something like that, you're good to go. That, of course, depends on what the server is actually doing. If it's something that has to do with like e-commerce and they're going to be open at 2 o'clock in the morning and that's when they're busy, like a bar or something like that, then you just need to figure out when a good time to do this is. I build a lot of virtualized concentrators and VPN concentrators and routers, which will take an entire organization down when I do this for a certain period of time. So I have to schedule that out. But it is what it is. As opposed to doing a full, a full VM copy, this is way faster. There you go. Okay, so we're done with that now. So now we're running on test 2. And if we go in here and look, we will see, there it is, test 2. So now we're going to add test 3. Forgetting to put the dash in there. Alright, and control X, and yes, and enter. So now we have test 3. Now, at this point, this is the current running system, test 3. You don't see it over here because it's just the current running system. So now we're going to go and create another snapshot, and we're going to call it 3test. Test. Looks good. Finish. Again, it's going to pause your VM while it does this. I've tried this with shutting the VM down and then doing the snapshot. I've tried it with doing it while the machine is running. while the machine is running, seems to be just fine. The larger the machine, the larger amount of data, it seems to, increase the amount of time, but it's nothing like duplicating the whole hard drive. And in all honesty and fairness, I hate to admit it, but that's been my approach in the past. But after playing with this for about a day, I've decided that snapshots is the way to go. It's really, really efficient. Does it very quickly, and it's kind of what virtual machines were designed to do, was this exact thing. But people, they get confused by the fact that they deleted the wrong snapshot. They get frustrated with it, and so they resort to doing things like duplicating the whole hard drive, which is not a bad idea either. I mean, before you introduce this concept and start working with it, it's not a bad idea to pause the original VM and just, clone it and call it something like overall backup or something like that. Okay, so we're done with that, and we're going to go back into here, and we're going to take a look, and what we've got is test 3. Cool. Now, we're going to verify that we can roll back to test 2 and test 1. So we're going to go back to test 2 here, and we're going to hit play, and it's going to warn us that, hey, everything you did after test 2 is going to be gone if you do this. We're fine with that. We just want to make sure it exists. I will tell you, when I didn't know how this worked, it caused me a lot of problems. But after spending a day with it, I'm super impressed. So we're going to go back to here. X. Actually, it's going to put us right back in the same machine state, so we're going to close this because it's not connected to anything. And we will just start a new terminal and go right back to the same box. 45. And there it is. And we're going to go in here and nano test txt. And oh my gosh, what's going on here? Oh, it should be on test 2. Control X. Oh, I'm in the wrong directory. So let's change directory. Remember, wherever the system is at that time that you run that snapshot, that's where you're going to go. That's where you're going to wind up. So we need to change directory back to home. Sean G. And then we'll do the nanotest.txt. So here we are. We are on the running instance, which is test 2, and guess what we got in here? Test 1 and test 2. Now, this pretty much proves, how this works. We could go back to test 3, but trust me, it's going to be test 3, because that's the one little change that we made to the whole system. So, how do we deal with the fact that we gotten to a specific point and that's where we want it to be? We don't want any more snapshots in here. Now, this is the thing that bit me in the ass when I was using snapshots. I did not order them correctly by naming them correctly, and I was thinking if I deleted a particular one, that was where I needed to be, but there was stuff ahead of me and stuff behind me. And when you think about it, it's not really that big of a deal. I mean, so long as you're on the one that you want, you delete everything else, you play that particular one, and then once it's at that point, and this is the crucial part, you can then delete the last snapshot, and it puts you right where the last snapshot was. And that is a super important aspect of this. So for instance, if we were on the third phase of the install of whatever it was we were doing, and it worked and everything was fine, well, having this other snapshot information in here is kind of problematic. It adds overhead to the server, and it would be better if we didn't have any snapshots. I've also heard reports that snapshots will have the tendency to grow larger than what their actual hard drive capacity is, and that introduces a whole nother problem. Now, they may have fixed that at this point, I don't know, but it doesn't matter. We're using this to do upgrade paths, and it works well for that. But you do need to understand that the order that this happens in and what it is you're going to delete is super important. So what we're going to do, we're going to run with the most current snapshot we have, which is test 3 test. Okay, and we're going to play that one and get that up and going, and say yes to that, and it is going to make our running instance the 3rd one. Now, you would think that, okay, well, what if I delete the first 3? Wouldn't that delete everything that led up to that point? And that's not the case. Whatever your current running status is, that's what it's going to be when you delete the last one of them, and the last snapshot. And so that is the most crucial aspect that you always need to keep in mind. So it looks like we're back up. Let's go ahead and check our web server, make sure it's going here. Alright, so now we are currently running on 3 test, which is the one that we put all those other files into. So you could think of those files as being an upgrade path. You ran the upgrade, then you ran the configuration, whatever. Just make sure and number them at the beginning so it puts them in the right order. So you know that this very bottom one is the most recent one that you have, the most recent snapshot that you have. Because I swear to God, if you put names and stuff in here, it will put them in alphabetical order, and it just doesn't make any sense. It's very difficult to work out. You got to open each one of them and figure out whether or not the changes that you made are the changes that you want. It's just easier if you just number them like this as you're going through. I'm going to put in some sort of request for virtmanager so that they just put them in order based on when the snapshots were created, but for now, just know that. And this is just a virtmanager thing. I don't know about VMware. I don't know about Zen. I don't know how they deal with things. I don't mess with those at all. So I couldn't tell you if they just naturally do this or not. Okay, so this is our current running instance. We're literally just going to delete all these others. All right, so we're going to go to this one and delete. Yes. I was very confused in trying to find documentation on this. I'm really amazed that there isn't more out there. I've looked at YouTube stuff. They talk about creating snapshots, but they don't talk about the order of them and how that order is affected when you go and delete, something in between the very first, the base image, and what it is you're currently running on. We're going to just go and do that. We're just going to go to the first one here, and we're going to delete that. Yes. And when this is done, we're going to go look at the file and make sure we're still on, 3 test. Or test 3, I think is what's in the file. I'm not very good with that whole, keeping track of. Okay. So, this green indicator shows that this is what we're running on. Let's go ahead and go into here and Control X. We've already created the file in here. It doesn't really matter. We're going to log back in because the machine got shut down and restarted. Alright, and then we're going to go to actually, let's do this so we can just get to it quickly. We're going to go nano /home /Sean G and test.txt. Okay, so here you can see we're running 3 tests and we are on test 3. Now I could switch it over to test 2 and you would see that there was only test 1 and test 2, but trust me on this, that's what exists in that snapshot. So now the last thing we're going to do is go back into here. We're going to select this one and delete this one because we've gotten all the way through our upgrade process or whatever it is that you're doing. And everything's good. We just need to make sure we get rid of that older stuff because it's just overhead for the computer or the server to process. Okay, now we're down to this last state, which is running. We'll check it again here real quick. Control X. And go back in here. Boom, here we are. We still have test 1, 2, and 3, so this is very definitely the third snapshot that we did, or the fourth snapshot. There was the base, and then there was the other 3, I believe. I can't remember exactly. So now, you've got a great running system, you have a snapshot, but the server still has to keep track of what your base system was on the snapshot, and that's just overhead for the server. So now what we're going to do is, now that we're where we want to be, we're going to delete this snapshot, and this is the scary part. We'll see how this goes. What it's telling you, are you sure you want to permanently delete the selected snapshots? What it's telling you is whatever the system is currently running in is going to wind up being the base. It's going to be, that's what the system's going to be. And we're just going to say yes to that. And I believe, well, actually what I know is because we've made all those changes and that's the actual instance that we have selected in the snapshots, that becomes the base of the running system. It is where the system is currently at. And by the way, a lot of people have a tendency to just leave these there so they can always roll back to something. I would highly recommend you don't do that. If you get where you need to go, get rid of those old snapshots. It's going to be really, really confusing later on. Okay, so we got rid of all the snapshots. Let's take a look and make sure that we got everything that we wanted. What we wanted was to be able to, to be at level 3, at test 3. So let's go ahead and look, and there it is. So we went through 4 snapshots basically, 3 of them being potentially pretty critical aspects of an upgrade or something along those lines, and we were done. We checked that last one, everything was good, and then we got rid of the other ones and we're right where we need to be. And you guys, this is one of those things that's like, I have talked to people and they've said, no, I don't use those, they're a headache. I can't wrap my head around where we're at with that. I'm hoping that this video helps out with that. I got to train people to do this on some really critical equipment, and so the whole reason I'm making this video is to just help people out with this. It's just weird that there's not something out there on the internet that explains this better. There's like 2 or 3 videos that I found in YouTube that really don't explain that whole process, and they just kind of give you this false impression that you can just snapshot stuff and then just delete them whenever you want. Technically you can, but when you're going through a multi-phase upgrade or something like that, it's very important to understand where you started, where you ended, and anything in between that you might need to hold on to. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should just wipe these out all the time. The overhead on the server, I don't know for sure what that is, but it does, I'm sure it has some sort of impact on performance. But the bigger thing is that it's just cleaner to do all this and have your good running system, and then when you need to do upgrades, you do this process again. So anyway, I hope this is helpful for you guys. The guys that I'm making this for, I work with them, and they're learning how to do this, and they're brilliant, and I just hope this really helps them out. So, thank you much. Have a good day, and I hope it helped you out.